Hey, it's me, Shill, writer, illustrator, and editor, and we're here for another Friday to have some tea. Today, I have English breakfast with a little bit of almond milk. Today, I want to talk about the subject of procrastination, and really that's like a massive subject with a lot of facets. I could probably make 15 videos on this. I was talking to a friend who's a cognitive behavioral therapist, and they brought up some interesting ideas around the study and research behind procrastination. And they brought something to light that I thought was interesting that would be really cool to talk about. First off, what they were basically saying is that procrastination in most people, it is very multifaceted, and there might be a number of reasons that this response is caused in people. And disclaimer, the overall feel I got was you shouldn't be killing yourself, saying I'm a horrible person, I'm a lazy person. There's a lot to do with your brain and your just cognitive makeup that is working against you, that is causing a procrastination reaction. But essentially what it comes down to, procrastination is the act of surrendering to resistance. When something is hard to do or causes you extreme anxiety in preparation of doing it, your brain will trigger resistance. Literally between the thought of, I should do this thing, and if you wait just 5 seconds in a delay between thinking I should do this thing and doing that thing, your brain is going to propagate cognitive resistance to stop you. And how this was explained to me is that basically your brain, the primary function is your survival. When something is hard to do, thus, and it creates a lot of anxiety for any number of reasons, your brain has to use a lot of energy in order to accomplish the thing that you feel like procrastinating on. Your brain is 100% all about reserving energy for your survival. You're a mammal. If it is not connected to these three things, it's the three S's: status, sex, security. Status is how the other people in your tribe, your group, your pod view you, because the better your status, the more loved you are. The more loved you are, the more you'll be taken care of. The absolute death for a human being is being ostracized from other people, especially in your little primordial brain where you evolved from. Being kicked out of the tribe and exiled to wilderness was certain death. So there's a lot of evolution in your brain saying that I should do things for status among my peers, so I'm accepted and continue to be taken care of as part of this group. Sex, of course, is the propagation. It's the most base human, animalistic, cognitive reaction and reason why you do things. And also security. That is money, resources, comfort. And if you look at how you react to procrastinations, what you choose to do instead of doing the thing that you're trying to do, like write your book, looking at you, should write your book, you might notice that what you choose to do to procrastinate is attached to one of these three things. Most common for a lot of people, it has to do with security. You'll choose to binge watch Netflix for a while, go to bed and sleep, read a book, clean your house, because that is feeding that part of your brain that says, hey, this is for our survival. Comfort equals survival. The thing, like writing your book, is not connected to your survival. So your brain does not want to put any energy toward it. And certainly there's plenty of people who probably use something attached to sex to distract themselves, and we're not going to get into that. That's your business. Your brain is basically will cause resistance to stop you from wasting energy on this thing that it sees no reason to waste energy on. And the number one reason for people to have their brain react this way, where it doesn't want to waste energy on writing your book or doing your art or whatever it is because of the anxiety attached to it. The more anxiety behind something, the more cognitive energy you're going to waste. Your brain is the largest consumer of calories in your body. And the more difficult something is to do, the more cognitive energy is being spent on it. Thus, the bigger waste of time it is, the bigger waster of energy. So essentially, it really comes down to getting to the root of what is causing that massive anxiety behind your project that you claim is so important to you. So you stop having that reaction of, this is going to cause a lot of cognitive energy waste. Thus, I'm going to trigger a natural reaction in my body to preserve energy by putting this off. If you ever actually notice when you do decide, I'm going to put this off, I'll do it tomorrow, I'll do it next week, you instantly feel calm. Your brain is rewarding you for preserving energy. You immediately have a dopamine hit, and you're rewarded for preserving energy and not wasting it on this thing that causes great anxiety, but yet is not attached to the 3 things you need to survive as a mammal. This actually can cause a cognitive habit loop if you get in the habit of consistently putting things off. We are mammals, we are creatures, our brains are just giant pattern recognition machines. So anything that gets attached to a habit. And by the way, I really want to do a video on habit loops, because habit loops are like the only reason why I accomplish anything in life, and it has to do with one thing you do triggering a impulsive response to do another thing. And it's basically just so you don't have to have discipline. I don't like having discipline. I don't like having willpower and making myself do stuff. It's so much easier if I just have these triggered reactions that I almost can't control, where I'm mindlessly doing things that are good for me, that I'm supposed to do. I'll totally get into that in another video. But like I was saying, you can cause a negative habit loop if you're always putting things off, where your brain has a trigger like, oh, when I feel this anxiety because this project, I procrastinate. Is A leads to B, and B leads to C. C is a dopamine release. Oh, I feel anxiety having to do this project. My brain doesn't want me to waste energy on this project that's not attached to the 3 fundamental things that are the best for my survival. Thus, I have an impulse to procrastinate. I give in to the resistance of doing that project and procrastinate it. I'll do it next week, you might tell yourself. And then your brain releases dopamine. It's an ABC habit loop in your brain. And essentially, if you do it enough, it becomes your default. You only have to repeat something about 30 times for it become an ingrained habit that's extremely hard to break. Extremely hard. And I'll talk about this more when I talk about habit loops on another video. But that actually is a positive. It means you can do something positive for yourself in a habit loop 30 times, and it'll become very hard ingrained to the point where it's going to be very difficult to break the habit in the future. The only bad part is if you have a negative habit loop, like procrastinating things that are supposedly important to you, it's going to be very difficult for you to break that habit because you've probably done it more than 30 times. I mean, I'm in my 30s. If you're watching, you're in your 20s or 30s, you probably hundreds of times. You've had a procrastination loop hundreds of times if you are sitting there hating yourself because you never get done the things that you say are important to you. You never go to the gym, you never start your book, you never finish your book, you never do that art project that you claimed was everything to you because there's so much anxiety attached to it that you have this mental resistance to not do it. Now I kind of want to talk about that mental resistance because I've talked to a lot of writers. I have a local writers group. So the subject of procrastination, writer's block, and putting things off comes up a lot. And the biggest thing, and this is just completely anecdotal information, I didn't get this from a cognitive behavioral therapist or anything. This is just simply what I experienced from my writer's friends. So if this rings true to you, cool. If it doesn't, comment below and let me know what you think it actually is with yourself. But I'm noticing a lot of times that the thing causing the biggest resistance is expectations. Like, you have this book and it's very important to you, and you've attached expectations to it that you are fearful that you won't live up to. Like, this book I wrote, it's going to be my big break. It is going to be the book that is going to get me signed. I have these dreams about being able to quit my job and be a full-time writer. I have dreams about being a working writer. I have dreams about the New York Best Time, paneling at conventions, like whatever it is. Is there something very important and heady attached to the outcome of this project? Are you attached to an expectation so hard that it's causing anxiety? Because the reality conflicts with the expectation. The reality is what you're about to do and embark on is very difficult, the likelihood of success is low. But if you're doing it for this heady, grand expectation, you're attached to that expectation. The cognitive dissonance between the likelihood of happening, how much work it's going to take to accomplish it, and your daily practice of trying to make it happen can cause you an anxiety attack. Are you approaching your project in one giant piece, and it's all overwhelming, and it's so much bigger than you, and it's crushing you, and you have an expectation attached to its outcome that's life-changing? I can't think of any greater reason why you'd have anxiety over that and why it'd be destroying you and crushing you. You have put all your beans in that basket, eggs in that basket. If we're living a life attached to expectations and attached to a certain specific outcome, it can crush us. You're never going to get there. You're never going to get that thing that you're dreaming of. Old African proverb, the best way to eat an elephant, one bite at a time. The whole elephant is overwhelming. How can you break this down into small goals, small accomplishments? It's also this idea that this is it. And a lot of people die in the middle of writing because it's not perfect and they can't get it done. And I completely believe in a sandbox method. I hate drafting, and my drafts are ugly. It's just a race to get the sand in the sandbox so I can finally do the part I like, which is I like the editing. I like the second draft, the third draft, the fourth draft. I love that. I get the sand in the sandbox so I can make some sand castles. That's my jam. But I know some people who, if they don't get it right in that first draft and it just falls apart and it feels like everything's unraveling, and it's really because they're thinking of the end goal, which has to be this perfect Pulitzer Prize winning book in the end. But it's not really the reality. Your first draft is allowed to be ugly. It's having the courage just to suck at something. And it's also, you might be looking so far ahead that you can't see a reasonable way of breaking down the steps. Because the best way to accomplish something is to break it down to achievable, incremental goals as you proceed forward. Neil Gaiman said that writing is like driving on a foggy road with your headlights on. You can't see where you're going way off in the horizon or anything, and you can't see your destination, but you can only see a few feet ahead of yourself. But as long as you just keep following the road and only being able to see a few feet ahead of yourself, you'll eventually get to the end of that road. If you're thinking about the murky, dark ugliness ahead, you might freak out saying, I don't know what's up there. I'm not planned for that. Just pay attention to the 8 feet in front of you, one step at a time. Incremental, achievable goals. And that's sort of bringing it back to those 3 cognitive drives in our brain, status, sex, security. And there is a way to work with your brain, not against it. Some people like to do the old reward system. They attach their project that they're doing. I finish my input of 90 minutes on this a day, or I finish my outputs of 2,000 words a day on this project. I will reward myself with chocolate. I'll binge Netflix, play video games for a while. That is activating the need for security in your brain. Comfort. Food is comfort. Video games are fun. Binging Netflix, it's warm, it's nice. You're wearing your robe, watching Netflix, it's comforting. So you trigger that security feeling. That's really great. Another way you can approach it is to completely use the status part, which is tell people, I intend to finish this project. Or if that's too big and heady and hurts you, tell them, I intend to work for 90 minutes every day. Or I intend to write 2,000 words every day on this project. And have someone that you're accountable to, that if you don't do it, they're going to be like, well, what's up with that? Check in with me, man. What's going on? And then you have accountability. And that triggers the status part. You might have the rejection or ire of members of your tribe if you don't accomplish this. They'll hold you accountable. But overall, yeah, I think that I might make many videos on procrastination because this is a big thing, and I find people beat themselves up and be really self-hateful over not doing the things that they said they would do when there's so much cognitive bullshit just working against you every day. And of course, I really want to make that habit loop video because I think building habit loops is the biggest way to basically work with your brain to help you accomplish the things you say are important to you, and limit that resistance. Make resistance not even a part, not even a factor in your routine and in getting things done. But overall, I really leave it with this big thing. I think if you are attached to an outcome, it becomes so much weight that it could crush you and it could keep you from actually achieving that outcome. You have to be really brave to fail. And failure is inevitability in art, it's inevitability in writing, so it's just a given. And that has to be okay, because that's not the end. That is part of the process of this. So I'll just leave it with that. F your expectations. Just do it. 8 feet in front of you. That's all you gotta worry about. Incremental goals. 2,000 words at a time. 90-minute writing session at a time. Not the end manuscript. The end manuscript is the sum of the parts that you put into it. It is that 25 minutes on the weekend when that's all you had, plus that 90 minutes on a Monday night when that's all you had, plus that 1,000 words after lunch before you went back to work because that was all you had. The finished manuscript in all its glorious golden glory is the sum of all those tiny parts. And when you sit down, attach the big giant expectation of the finished manuscript that's going to change my life, you are losing the little parts that equal the end. Because your brain does not understand in the future that the manuscript is going to be in the future. All your brain is understanding is like, oh, I have to write this 100,000 word document right now. That's really how it's translating it, and it is destroying your mind. Instead of saying, oh, I only have to work for 25 minutes right now. Your brain gets that. It's not going to have an anxiety attack over that. Especially if you attached it to something that it views part of its survival. So overall, I'm going to make more videos about this because stop beating yourself up. Anyway, that was our tea talk. I'm about halfway done with my English breakfast tea with almond milk. Yeah, like and subscribe if you want to see more of these, and yeah, stop being a dick to yourself. Bye.